It has already started as reports of Jim Montgomery losing this locker room has started to swirl around the Bruins organization. We're going to be talking about everything that has led up to this point. Is Jim Montgomery actually losing the locker room? And some insights from Elliotte Friedman that may sway some fans' opinions. Now, as I mentioned, this has been a big issue since the beginning of the season, including the preseason, where the Bruins have not seemed to be the Bruins that we know. So we're going to be talking about, is Jim Montgomery on the hot seat, and is he losing this locker room here in this video? Before we get into it, though, we know 70% of you guys watching right now are not subscribed to the channel. Be sure to hit the sub button and hit the bell as well so you don't miss out on the live stream that we will be having tonight to discuss this whole issue an hour before puck drop. So I want to see all of you guys there. I want your opinions. This is a very big topic for the Bruins. A lot of fans have some very differing opinions on, and make sure to get yours heard. So, like I said, be sure to tune into that live stream. But without any further ado, we need to get into this topic and really just discuss, is Jim Montgomery losing the bench? Is he losing the locker room? Are fans turning on him? And starting it off with a very quick answer here is, it seems to be that fans are turning on him. However, I don't think that time is right now. I don't think that is the case. And this really all started from the beginning of the season, but it really started when we had seen him kind of lose a bit of patience at Brad Marchand. However, we've kind of gone over that is for a good reason. This is what Elliotte Friedman had to say on that week's, which was last week's 32 Thoughts, the podcast. He labeled it jarring, and then he goes, you know what, it was jarring. Friedman said, I would say you don't see coaches yell at players like that on the bench too much anymore. You really don't, and that's one thing that's really been behind doors as of late. There are very few coaches in the NHL that continue to kind of have this play style. John Tortorella being really the only one that we see like that now, and he really does not care what he says, which is really the mentality you need to have as a coach of a team that is really on the border of things like Philadelphia is. So going from that and going from, the whole system that the Bruins are in right now, Jim Montgomery really needs to get back into that John Tortorella mindset where things like this, where he's yelling at Brad Marchand, is set as a good example rather than something that we need to be worrying about. Having this yelling at your captain, showing that your captain is not even doing good enough in the game, that was a horrible mistake of what Brad Marchand has done. It does make sense that you're not going to let him off the hook. You want to set a good example for these young kids, some of these younger guys that are on this team, knowing that this is unacceptable and you cannot be having that. So with people that are kind of questioning the whole sense of what happened here, what went on, what would happen in that situation, we now know that this is exactly what they needed to do. And as you can see here, Jim Montgomery, not happy. This was the whole event that went down. That kind of whole thing was warranted in that situation. But Elliotte Friedman also had this to say on this 32 Thoughts, the podcast of this week. There's been a lot of early Jeremy Swayman lengthy contract stalemate. Jim Montgomery going hard at Captain Brad Marchand on the bench in Utah. That yelling wouldn't bother me as long as it was a rare occurrence. I'd be more worried if it happened often. That's a sign of things coming unglued. A couple sources pointed out that they don't like coaches who only make examples of young players or fourth liners, and Jim Montgomery isn't afraid to criticize the stars. That tap from Brad Marchand was the only thing that concerned me, but that didn't cross the line and surely won't happen again. And once again, that was just kind of a, come on, kid, get up. We can't be doing that. In my mind, that's what that sense of a tap was. But as you can see, Elliotte Friedman kind of stepped back on what he had to say there. That tap really was the only thing that kind of was concerning at that point. Wasn't so much the yelling as it was very warranted. And even in the game after that against Nashville, the Bruins seem to have nothing going. And starting with this is what Jim Montgomery had to say in this game, kind of discussing what was wrong. I thought that we responded well right after that. But again, it's the fact we have to kill off a 4-minute penalty after we've already tried to kill off 3 in the first. It overtaxes certain players. Certain players are playing too many minutes. Other players are sitting on the bench too long. He also goes on to continue in the same statement to say this: it's discipline. We're taking far too many stick penalties. You want to prevent scoring chances and take good penalties. Usually, you're going to kill off those we're having too many in an offensive zone. We got to sharpen that up. And once again, Jim Montgomery going out here saying this is the result of the loss, that there's too many penalties. Jim Montgomery don't really have a choice but to put out a penalty killing line. You look at guys who are not getting too much ice time, guys who are getting too much, but there's nothing you can do about that when you have to go out and kill 6 to 7 to 8 even 9 penalties a game. And that's just to a point where the Bruins are. They are not a disciplined enough team to be blaming Jim Montgomery for this. There's nothing that he can do about the guys on the ice taking penalties. He's not out there on skates. We can't see him go out and avoid taking penalties. So it all stems from a lot of different things, that Jim Montgomery being blamed for all of this. There's nothing that he could have done about this that would really change anything and really change anybody's mind about what he's doing. A lot of people can say he might be a bit soft on the bench, but I can assure you that what we've seen with Brad Marchand was not the case. That was exactly the Jim Montgomery that we've seen be hard on the bench and just really believe in his guys and know when someone has made a mistake. And another screenshot here going from Jimmy Murphy, and this one goes, for those who don't seem to understand this, the Bruins head coach Jim Montgomery isn't simply a call-up an AHL player on his own. While his input is noted, it's never his decision, so please stop blaming Montgomery for Lysel's absence from the Bruins NHL roster. And that also goes to go with blaming Jim Montgomery for everything that's going on the ice. He can't make any changes from someone being called up to the AHL. He can't make a decision on signing Tyler Johnson. He really can't do anything like that. It's not his job to do that. It's his input that is noted. That is it. And having someone called up, whether the roster change is coming, either Fabian Lysell, Georgian Merkulov, Riley Duran, whether it's signing Tyler Johnson to get into this lineup, Jim Montgomery can wish for that, but it's not his decision. As Jimmy Murphy mentioned there, his input is noted, but he's not the one that goes out of his way to call this player up, to go and sign the contract for this player and whatnot. So it is time that the Bruins made a change. I've mentioned that in the last video, and Jim Montgomery, I'm sure, is all for it because he's been changing the lineups. He's been doing as much as he can to make something work, and it just seems like nothing has been happening. Nothing has been able to happen. The stars, the top players, still are not doing enough. The fourth line, the third line last game seemed to be better. The fourth line has been good the entire time. It's just a matter of making changes or waiting till we see a roster change until this team actually figures stuff out. And Jim Montgomery, as I mentioned, cannot make a change to these guys' play on the ice. He can only provide input. He can't do that for them. So it is just a matter of time until we see a lineup change and a roster change that works being made. And pulling up this screenshot here as well, it goes to a very good hand-in-hand idea with this. Pavel Zacha was bumped off the Bruins' first line with and still led the forwards with 18 minutes and 48 seconds time on ice. Pastrnak still on the first line, 16 minutes and 18 seconds in a game that they lost 4-0. And then they go on to say, what are you doing here, Jim? But once again, that also goes to go with the penalty kill. Pavel Zacha is going to be on the ice more than David Pastrnak in a game where you're taking way too many penalties. That's just a matter of fact. If there's a power play, the roles would be the exact opposite. And, well, not the exact opposite, but you'd see David Pastrnak getting more ice time. And this is, once again, I don't think is on Jim Montgomery, solely for the fact that there's nothing he can do about the power play penalty kill lines. Some people are taking too many penalties. You can't keep them on the ice. They're going to be taking more if they simply do not get off the ice, do not stop or do not gain any more discipline. It's just going to keep on happening and happening and happening. And it's, as I mentioned, it's just a matter of time until the penalties stop, the roster change is finalized, they find a lineup that works, and it's going to be a matter of fact until when the Panthers games kind of get out of the minds of them. That really turned their season downwards on the beginning. They were hoping to get a bit of revenge early on in the season, but when Florida beat them twice, that really took every bit of wind out of the sails that the Bruins had. And that's a big impact at the beginning of a season, especially on a team that is looking to start their season off on the right foot. And that was a big turning point for this season, and it's continued to show throughout these early games later at the start of the season. And looking at the Bruins network here, and kind of goes hand in hand once again with what I had said there. The Bruins were not prepared in the preseason, not prepared in the regular season. If Jones, Tufte, Brazeau, and Zadorov were the only culprits, it would be one thing. But Marchand, Coyle, Pastrnak, McAvoy, Carlo, Frederic, Hampus Lindholm, Morgan Geekie are all losing battles and weak on the puck and trying to cheat on plays. And nobody's going 100% except this fourth line, as I mentioned. The third line last game against the Predators had been much, much better as well. So we can now categorize that as a group of players that are playing good. But you know, it's not even the whole third line. It's not the whole team. The goalies are doing what they can. It is a matter of fact now that the players need to get back on their feet, get going once again, and, you know, spare Jim Montgomery a bit of slack because once, as I mentioned, and it's pretty much the whole topic of this video is this is not Jim Montgomery's fault. We're going to see this more and more as the Bruins lose, but we hopefully will see less of that now tonight starting at this game. So once again, remember, there's a live stream tonight. Get in there, get your opinions heard. Let me know what you think about Jim Montgomery here in the comments on this video, as well as the comments on the live stream. I'll be reading them, going over kind of what we've seen the past few games and what we're going to see tonight and what changes need to be made. So I want to see you there, but that's all I got in this video. Did enjoy, give a like, hit the sub button as well. Remember, I want to see you guys in the live stream. Comment below on this video as well if you were not able to tune in. What do you think about Jim Montgomery? Do you think this is on him? You think this is on the players? A mixture of both? Let me know. But that's all I got. Thank you for watching. Hope you have a great day. See you later.